verge from death numerous times. Tragedy that should have crippled me numerous times. And I do believe that I am a walking, talking miracle. I've always had faith in God, and I accredited my being here today from that faith. What's led me to write this book, this is my first book, Life versus Death, and it is my life story, and it does cover all the numerous times I've been spared. But I was in an accident back in 1994. That was the one that took its toll on me. I was forced into retirement, considered totally disabled, and I spent 15 years in a depression, over 15 years in a depression and state of mind that I just shut the whole world out. And fortunately, I had a good woman that stood by me, a good family, my children put up with me when I was unbearable to live with. And finally, they convinced me that I needed some help. So 3 years ago, I went to a doctor. The doctor got me on some good pain medicines, very good pain medicine. And right now, I take no pain medication whatsoever. But it's taken 3 years to get me to that point. They put me on a depression medicine that eventually snapped me out of my depression. And in the process, my doctor, I would tell her the stories, and she says, well, Beef, you ought to write a book. Well, I'm not no writer. I don't have no business writing a book. My story's not interesting. Nobody would be interested in my story. And so as time went on, she introduced me to a therapist, not a psychiatrist, but a therapist, a pain management therapist. And I would visit with him. He says, Beef, you got to write a book. So last January, a couple days after my wife's birthday, I started writing. Well, initially I started looking for ghostwriters. And we're going to cover all this stuff that I'm just going to briefly go through the process that I went through. And in finding ghostwriters, I found a lot of them. And they're costly. And I didn't have the dollars. So I had to figure out a way to do what I wanted to accomplish without any dollars. And so anyway, in the process of looking for a ghostwriter, I knew I had to compile a few notes and give them an idea of what my story was going to be about. So a couple days after my wife's birthday, I started putting that together. First thing I know, I had my book written, and it was published last February the 26th. So it's been out right at a year now. And in the process, I've changed the cover 3 times. And that's one of the advantages of being self-published. If you don't like the way the cover looks, you can change it without changing any of the content on the inside. All right, enough of that. Let's see what we're supposed to be talking about. Let's look at some of the advantages or disadvantages or challenges between traditional publishing and self-publishing. And I'm not going to play on y'all's intelligence. I know y'all can read, so we're not going to go over each and every one of these verbatim, but I'm just going to cover a couple of the basics. One of the challenges of being self-published is pretty much you've got to put out the dollars first before you get any results. With traditional publishing, should your work happen to be picked up by a publisher, they will finance the promotion and the printing and all of that good stuff. Unfortunately, their promotion is not much different than any other promotion, and it's still left up to about 90% of you promoting your own work. the advantage on the page 3, the advantages of self-publishing are that, number one, the more you do yourself, the less it's going to cost you. And if you're in a position to do like Robert and I did, and do everything yourself, it will not cost you anything until you decide to order your first copy for yourself. In fact, my book, I was very fortunate. Of course, once I knew that it was available, I spread the word, and there were 3 copies sold before I even got a chance to order my first copy, which was awesome. And then by the time I got my first order, I had sold 4 books off of Amazon. Amazon sold 4 books for me. And the rest of the sales, I do a lot of self-promoting, so I do a lot of direct sales on my own. But that's one of the advantages. That's the advantages. The disadvantage are, one of the disadvantages of traditional publishing is more than likely your work's not even going to get picked up. It's going to be nitpicked to the point that no, we're not looking either for new work, or you need to change this, change this, change this, change this, and it doesn't become your own. You do not own the rights. The publishing company owns the rights to that work. It's not your work no more once you publish. Self-publishing, you hold all the rights to your work. Life versus Death is also available on audio, which I own the copyright to. It was produced by Kevin Cohen, and it's also available on iTunes and Amazon and Audible.com, and of course, like my book, it's also available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and any of the major bookstore websites. Any major bookstore you walk into, if they don't have a copy on the shelf, they can get you a copy. That's exciting. Mm-hmm. The library, if you'd like to check out the book, it's available here at the library.
Wow.
And the only difference is the copy that's available here at the library is the original, excuse me, is the original with all the errors. And once I read my own book, got a copy in my hot little hand, and I actually read it, I caught several mistakes, and so I revised it. And this is the revised version with most of the errors taken out, and I even included pictures. Sometimes pictures help set the stage. One of the things that you will need is an ISBN number. The ISBN number is the International Standard Book Number. Every book has one. And you can buy one yourself, which is fine. They run about $135. Or you can find a self-publisher that provides that as part of their service. Now, but it won't cost you anything up front. We have got, in the handout here, I've got 33 self-publishing companies that you can go through. Should you choose to. I did the research for you so you don't have to. Most of them, be prepared to lay out anywhere from $300 to $1,500 just to get your book in print. But as I said, the more you do yourself, the less expensive it becomes. Thank you, Robert. I found a company that has a platform, and there's more than one, but the one that I found, and I found it by accident. And they provided the ISBN for me. They provide a platform for completely doing everything myself. And so by using that platform, not only was I able to design my own book cover, but I could get the template to actually put my book in the size that was necessary for the 7.5 by 5.5 by 7.5. And makes it real easy. If you can copy and paste, you can plug your work right into that template. I use Microsoft Word. I recommend Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word is a fantastic little product now. You can do more with Word now than you could 2 years ago. In fact, this entire flyer was created with Microsoft Word. Again, going back to the do-it-yourself. The more you do yourself, better off you are. Once you get your stories together, or whatever it is you may be writing, and just to let you know, folks, I'm not a writer. I happen to be an author, but I'm not a writer. And that is where self-publishing really jumps far ahead. Because if I would have submitted my story the way it's written, even now, nobody would pick it up. No traditional publisher would pick it up. But the fact that it's self-published, it doesn't matter if I misplace the period, or I misplace a semicolon, or if I misspelled a word. Whoops. Yeah, that's in there. And I tell folks, once you get past misspelled words in the grammar, that's a pretty good read. So that's where the advantage of being self-published comes in. Any questions so far?
Where'd you get your picture from? What is the picture? I'm trying to figure that out. Oh.
This one here actually comes out a little bit sharper.
Oh.
So self-publishing, we both know, gives you the power to make changes in your book if you need it, without having to ask traditional publishing to do it for you.
Right.
So it makes it a whole lot easier.
Right.
And self-publishing, you're able to tell the stories in your own words the way you want to tell them, which is something I learned to do also. So
Exactly. Exactly. When you go into the traditional publisher, there'll be editors that will tell you you can't say it this way. Well, this doesn't sound right. But, and with my story, same. I told it the way I wanted it to be told. And even when I start with one, I run around the barn just a little bit, and I come back to that. Traditional editors would say, hey, you can't do that. But the feedback that I have gotten has been very interesting to me, and the fact that what everybody will tell me when they pick up the book, they have a hard time putting it down because it's real and it came from the heart. It's me. It's me telling you the story.
Can I ask you something about the chapters? Do you have some chapters a lot longer than others?
I do have.
Because that's how my book is, and I'm kind of thinking maybe that's not supposed to be. I thought maybe I was the only one.
Yeah, there is no rule on how many words can be in a chapter. I picked up a book several years ago, and one of the chapters only had one sentence in it.
Oh, my.
So yeah, there is no rule. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about Robert. How I met Robert. I met Robert on the city bus one morning.
This guy?
Yeah, that guy.
Okay, well, let me
That guy right there.
get a picture of you, Robert. I'm just going to record video.
Cool.
sure, absolutely.
Providing we can get copies of it. I met Robert on the city bus. I was promoting one of my book signings, and at the time I didn't have a vehicle, so I had to utilize public transportation. And so I was on the bus, and I happened to jump off the bus here to the library. Robert was on the bus from the trip. Well, when I got on the bus, he was on the bus. And he and this other person was in the middle of a conversation, and me being the guy that I am, I just couldn't resist. I had to make a comment on something they were saying. And when I got to my stop here, they dropped me off. I come in, made the copies of my flyers and so forth. And then when I caught the bus again, Robert was on the bus. He was coming back. He was going back the other way. Well, I was headed to town so I could pass out all my flyers. And we got to visiting, and got talking about the book, and he let me know that he had some stories that he wanted to get published. Now, I told him that I would be happy to help him. And between Robert's talent of putting his stories together and what little bit that I knew about graphics and so forth, we put out this book for him. This was his first book, and once he got this book out, he realized that rather than writing a series, he wanted to go ahead and put more of what he went through during his addiction. And when I met Robert, he had only been out of prison for a short time. And we became friends instantly. Poor guy. But we created a bond instantly. It was like we had known each other all of our lives. And we realized that he really did have much more to share. And what he had to share would help a lot of people. So we put together Myth Behind the Meth. And I helped him create the cover. And his little mugshot on the back, the whole 9 yards. So these are the things that you can do.
Can I see it? Thank you.
He's in.
Oh, thank you. I hate to go fast.
Oh,
Boy, we're really having you work hard today.
that's fine. That's fine. So because of the advantages of self-publishing, Robert was able to accomplish one of his lifelong dreams, and that was to become a published author. And he's awesome. And now he's on city council and doing some great things for a lot of people. You can do the same thing by self-publishing. Again, the more you do yourself, the least it's going to cost you financially. You can self-edit. There's 12. Jump back here a little bit. Page 15 starts 12 ways to self-edit your book. Editing can be very, very expensive. The self-publishers do offer that as a service, and they will edit up to about 10,000 words for a couple $100, which that doesn't sound too bad. But then after that, it's so much a word thereafter. And Life versus Death happens to be a 30,000 word book. I couldn't afford that editor. So unfortunately, I put my first version out without actually going through the steps that I learned later. And it was after that I got that one published that I learned these steps. One of the things you want to do in self-editing is you want to walk away from your work for a day or two. And then go back and reread it. Another thing you want to do is read it backwards. And I don't mean backwards from the last word backwards to the first word. What I mean is backwards by taking the last paragraph, read the last paragraph, and then the paragraph before that, and the paragraph before that, because then it's not in sequence. And your mind, because your mind gets adjusted to knowing what you think it's going to say. And so it's going to read the way that you think it reads, unless you read it out of sequence. And then you've got to read it. And even though it's not making sense, because it's not in order, what you've actually written will jump out if there's any errors or anything that you want to reword or whatever. You'll actually see it. You'll not be saying exactly what you think it's saying. Of course, cutting unnecessary words. Yeah, I could have used that rule, but sometimes you just got to say it the way you've got to say it. Cutting unnecessary words can also help get your point across. I don't know that we've all written books that, or have read books that go on and on and on and on, and then you wonder, well, okay, what was the point? I've lost the point. And one of the things about the DIY publishing, what I've done, it's a 50-page guide, and I've cut to the chase. You do this, you do that, you do this, and whatever, and then you'll become a published author. Plain and simple. I read a book before putting this, or during the process of putting this guide together. It was over a 300-page book on self-publishing. How I got done with the book, I had no clue what he was talking about. And fortunately, I'd already been published, so I knew what I was looking for, and I didn't find that anywhere in that book. So my 50 pages are straight to the point. Now, my advisors have told me not to disclose this, but I always do. The company that I found is called CreateSpace. They happen to be owned by Amazon, and so that makes it real easy to get your published work available on Amazon. That's why my work was available on Amazon. I was able to get 4 copies sold before I actually got one in my hot little hand. It didn't cost me a nickel. I did not put out any dollars until I ordered my first copies. And my first order was 50 copies for myself. And the nice part about self-publishing is most of the self-publishers will print on demand. In other words, they don't even print your book until it's been ordered. And there is no guideline on how many you can order or how less you can order. I mean, you could just order 1 copy, and they'll print it and ship it. So that's a big advantage. If it wasn't for that, again, I wouldn't have been published because I didn't have any dollars. What was the name of this? CreateSpace. It's in the. It's not in the handout, but it is in the guide.
And how much are you selling the guide for?
The guide is $24.99, and the steps. Well, once you get to CreateSpace, the guide will walk you right through. From registering your account, how far you can go without even having anything written yet. It will cover how to get to your templates. For the trim size, you don't have to worry about gutter unless you're just that proficient with Microsoft Word. You can do it all in Word. You can set up the gutters and the margins and everything that you need according to trim size. But if you get like me, I got confused when I started reading all the specifications. In order to then when I said, oh well, they got templates. So you just download, and you can download either a blank template or you can download what they call a sample template, and the sample template will have show you the page to put your title on, where your table of contents goes, where your dedication goes, where your preface goes for whatever you want to add to the book. And then as you are copying and pasting or writing directly into that template, as you move from one page to another, it automatically numbers the pages and so on and so forth. So it makes it really, really nice. Same with the cover editor. You can, if you have a graphic program, and don't misunderstand the difference between graphic software and photo editing. Those are two different softwares. Photo editing mainly just gives you an opportunity to fix red eye and things of that nature, possibly crop a picture a little bit, but your graphic editors will actually let you create the graphic, whether it be a photo, whether it be from some other source, and you can download their template where you can put in the author and the title and the subtitle and then the biography, and if you notice the difference in this back cover, it just has a little snippet of what the book's going to be about. This has the similar snippet, but it also has a little biography. And so when I redesigned it, I wanted to include that on the back of the...
So it's really what you really want to put in the back of that. Do you have to always have a foreword or a summary in a book? You know, when I was looking into how you write a book, it told you that you know, what a foreword was, what a preface was, and then, you know, you always saw in the back of the book, you know, people that would comment about your book, and that, I mean, you know, that's how I've seen them. So I think this is unique that you just put, this is my story, or this is, you know, but do you have to have
that's not necessary. If you do not have
the foreword, it's okay.
The foreword, it's okay. I don't have a foreword.
Okay.
This book, you open it up, it's got the title page, and then with the author, it's got the copyright page. It's got the copyright page, and then it goes right into my dedication. And I dedicated this to my wife and my children. And then it has the acknowledgement page. After, wait a minute, did I pass that up? Table of contents.
What is an acknowledgement?
Acknowledgement are the people that you want to acknowledge. That, for example, in my acknowledgement page, I give credit to Dr. Lisa Young, DO. She's the one that mentioned that I should write a book, and then she introduced me to Steve Young. And Steve Young's the man that really gave me the encouragement to go ahead and do that. And then my current doctor, Dr. Phyllis Pennington, she encouraged me to push myself, not only to get the book out, but to get away from all the pain meds that I was on. When I first started seeing the doctor, I was on 125 a month. But unfortunately, what I didn't realize, and I do now, is my depression was feeding my pain, and my pain was feeding my depression. It was like a vicious circle. So the first thing that they wanted to do is get my pain to the point where I could deal with it. So I was taking, well, you can imagine, 120 tablets every 30 days of Vicodin. Vicodin is a narcotic and got to be under contract. And which I didn't like. I never was one to take medication. I never wanted to go to the doctor, and unless I was just forced to. So anyway, the depression meds that they chose to use, the first batch didn't really do much for me. In fact, if anything, it made it worse. And then I finally found the combination that worked, and now I'm even doing half of that, of what I initially started 3 years ago. So I've come a long way, but a lot of it is to do with actually getting this book published. I have found it opened up some doors for me. I was invited here at the library to do the recon recon last year, and now I've been invited again to not only do the recon, but to do my class. So that has opened up a lot of doors, and of course the different book signings and other speaking engagements has really helped me. Of course, this has nothing to do with y'all's book.
Kept you busy.
But that's where I come from. And if it hadn't been for the self-publishing platform and the do-it-yourself platform, I would not have had the opportunity to have excelled within myself and become the person that I was before the accident in 1994. Unfortunately, I've lost about 20 years of my life. But nothing I can do about that. So here I am now. Any questions?
How long did it take you to write your book, Steve?
Well, the fact that it was my life story and I already knew the stories, once I got started, like I said, I started writing actually a couple of days after my wife's birthday, which is January the 8th. And I was published, had my material submitted to Create Space, and it was published February the 26th. So it took me approximately about maybe 6 weeks.
And basically that was because you already had the story inside of you, you just had to put it out.
Right, exactly. If there's anything you all don't know how to do, and you need a little assistance on, I'm available. I know a little bit about graphics.
Oh, that's something I wanted to ask. You know, when you get a picture off the internet, you can't, it's got a little bit of ripple lines. Is there a way to fix that picture? You know, you cannot get another picture for it. I have changed my pictures over and over again, and this is the one, but it doesn't have, it's not fine-tuned. I mean, I do not know how to.
Okay,
Do
your
that.
graphic editors will have a way that...
But it can be
you do
done.
that, but it can be done, yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
That's good to know.
Any questions? No, I know I ain't that good. Did I miss anything, Robert? Have I missed anything? Have y'all kind of glanced through the guide here?
You kind of covered everything.
I think so too. I like the acknowledging part because, you know, I have my acknowledgments at the back of the book, which isn't, you know, when you said that, it just clicked. They should be at the beginning because of them, you were inspired to write the book. You know, I had the same experiences. Everybody kept telling me, well, you got to publish it. And it's like, oh, you know, I'm just doing it for my grandchildren because I wanted them to know what I had experienced in God. And all the visions and everything he taught me. And so I just so happened to loan it to one person. After that, it was just like I'd meet people at the store and they were Spanish, and the book wasn't in Spanish. Oh, I want to buy that book, and I think they don't even know how to read in English, and they want to. And you know that was supernatural encounter. But so you know, but I like the way you have the acknowledgement because it should be in the front. I didn't think about that. You know, those are things that you get your book published, and then later you go, man, why didn't I think about doing that from the beginning? You don't.
Exactly.
You don't.
That's the nice part about getting the template, and any of the self-editor companies, publishers that offer the platform of do-it-yourself do have templates for trim size, and they will guide you through which page would be for your table of contents, which page you can put your introduction on if you have one, or dedication and acknowledgments. And I don't think there's any set rule. Mm-hmm. When it comes to self-publishing, there is no set rule. It's your work. You put it out the way you want it.
Important to you. Mm-hmm.
Getting back to what you were saying about somebody buying a book in a different language, I sold a book to someone that couldn't read English, but she bought the book and was going to have her son read it to her.
Oh.
How about that?
Now
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And all the kids do know English. It's the parent.
Absolutely.
She was the parent.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
Did you guys do an outline, or did you just sit down and start writing?
I just sat down and started writing. Like I said I was looking for ghostwriters, and I knew that I needed something to do to get a grasp on what my story or my book was going to be about. And so I just started with the first story that popped into my head, and that's where I started. And the first thing I know, I realized that, hey, I can do this. And what I did is when I was writing, I was acting like I was telling my story to you. And of course, I've always been known as kind of a storyteller. Some of my cousins, they was glad I put the story of dog in my book. Long story. Sometimes you just get an animal that you just so ugly you can't put a name on it. You just call it whatever. Yeah, I had one of those that I called him Dog. But they already was familiar, some of my kinfolk was familiar with that story because at the reunions and stuff, I'd get up and tell stories and different things. So I was kind of familiar with that. Any other questions? Any?
So I find it interesting that you say you lost 20 years of your life and you actually spent 20 years finding out what you didn't want and experiencing these things. And so you had your experience strength to share with other people.
Good point. Good point. Very well taken.
That is awesome.
The search for the why. I always felt like I had a purpose in life. Even back in my truck driving days, I used to be a truck driver and spent many hours in that truck. And in between going over the road and doing stuff local, I'd get tired of being away from home, so I'd find something local. In fact, I was working a local job when I had my accident, and I might as well have been over the road because it was in the oil field, and the hours were just unbearable. In fact, just before my accident, I was working on my 11th week without a day off, and we was putting in about 16-hour days. And but that's when I was able to do that. And one of the companies I worked for prior, we used to run out to New York, and they liked putting me on one of those runs because I could make it almost as quick as a team. So they only had to pay one driver, and it just took me a little bit longer than what it would take two drivers to make the same trip. But young and dumb, young and hungry, whatever. But anyway, yeah, the guide will walk